I was ChatGPTing my way around Glasgow the other day.
Maybe describe what that is, because honestly, initially I thought to myself, like, what, just like asking it to tell you about Glasgow?
Yeah, as many people do. I use ChatGPT on a regular basis now. Not a day goes by that I don't use it for something. It could be anything from a lot of times it's like you have an email that you want to send and you just want to make sure that you don't have any typos and it'll sometimes smooth things out for you or whatever. Or sometimes you want to know like where's a good place to eat on the way from Albany to JFK or something like that, right? But the other thing that I've started to do is I use ChatGPT as my tour guide when I go places. What I do is I tell it where I am and then like I want to know something about it.
Yeah.
Right. So when we were in Germany, I feel like one of those things that would be awkward to ask a local is like, so what happened here during World War II, And then you can ask it follow-up questions and you can take it in any direction that you want. And then the other thing ChatGPT is astonishingly, miraculously amazing at is you can just take a picture. You can take a picture with it. You don't even have to say anything. And it'll be
Mhm.
like, oh, this looks like a headstone from the industrial mercantile era of Glasgow, likely from the necropolis or something like that.
Mhm.
Right. And that's where I just went for a walk the other day. I'm back in Albany now, but I was in Scotland last week. I just went for a walk through the necropolis just on my own, just killing some time. Was taking some pictures and whatever. The necropolis is pretty neat. And Glasgow is an incredibly interesting city. At one time, probably the second richest city on earth. And then Glasgow and Edinburgh, really incredible Enlightenment figures there. Invention of the steam engine, but also like the invention of a lot of like modern philosophy and just thoughts and stuff.
I feel like I hear schools and professors from those places mentioned quite often.
Yeah, well,
But
you have like your David Hume, right? And I think John Locke was more English than Scottish, maybe. But you have like your David Hume and you have your Adam Smith. It's a big one. And these were all products of the Scottish Enlightenment. They were also a few generations after. At least Scotland had a fairly, well, extremely intense Reformation. And the reason I bring that up is there's a huge monument to John Knox in the necropolis in Glasgow. And
mm,
John Knox was the boy that came in and mixed things up and brought about the Reformation in Scotland. And I'm not an expert in these matters at all. But one of the really interesting byproducts of the John Knox effect, let's call it, is sort of universal education and literacy that was implemented, in order to get people to read their Bibles and so on.
Sunday schools, stuff like that, right?
Yeah. But the
Yeah.
result of that was that Scotland became far and away one of the most literate societies on earth for a fairly long period of time. So I think
Pretty cool thing.
it might have backfired on old John Knox in a way,
Yeah.
you know?
Maybe this wasn't what he intended.
Yeah, like what he intended was for people to be able to, I mean, okay, don't shoot me, people, but like what really mattered to John Knox was that people were reading, his version of things. I'm thinking.
I was thinking it would be specifically the Bible, but I know very little about it, so I don't know what his motivations were.
I feel like they were. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. Let's not get too far into that because it would just be a horrendous mess of inaccuracy. But anyway, that literacy and that passion for reading things and thinking about things, I think it ultimately produced your amazing universities and just amazing literate society that was hungry to like read stuff. Then you've got your Robbie Burns that comes out of that. Like if no one could read at all, then Robbie Burns probably, and then you've got your Sir Walter Scott. Maybe was Walter Scott maybe a generation after Robbie Burns?
I'm not sure. In my
I think
mind,
he's. I think so.
they're
I
right in
think
the
so.
same place. But yeah, the ignorant mind tends to compress history, I think, and I've got one of those. So
Yeah, and so you got your Robert Burns, you got your Walter Scott, and so on. And then, interestingly, maybe a generation or two after that era would be the era that somebody like, wait for it, drum roll please, John McLellan of Dunoon, who was born, raised, brought up, doing all the things that people of that time were probably doing. And anyway, I think pretty close to the day we'll release this episode will be John McLellan of Dunoon's 150th birthday. And I think one of the things that makes bagpiping so super interesting is that most of our most famous music came from like lay people,
Mm,
right? It's
mm.
not like, I don't know, I feel like our most famous organ music or classical music came from like these crazy geniuses and all that sort of stuff and this, that, and the other thing. But like John McLellan of Dunoon wrote some of our best bagpipe tunes. I think our best bagpipe tunes, maybe ever. Super famous, and he was just like, I don't know, for all
Some
intents and
guy.
purposes, a guy, at least for starters, he was just a guy. But
Yeah, I don't know exactly what his training was, but from what I understand, he like was in the army and played bagpipes. Like as far as I know, he didn't
yeah,
like go to music school.
keeping in mind that my knowledge of John McLellan of Dunoon is like I'm not super educated, but I am super interested. But here's my question. How were his tunes so good and so advanced? Like John McLellan of Dunoon, even a cursory understanding of the basics of music theory, if you look at his tunes, they're on a whole different level relative to other tunes that were being composed at the time. Like, at least it seems to be like he had a deep understanding of chords and chord progressions and how it was all supposed to work. And then he was also seemingly deeply nostalgic about Scotland and so on. And I would expect that that would have been pretty common at that time, especially if you're going, everyone's like, oh, yes, the Boer War. Yes. But like, imagine going that far to a situation that's probably a lot different from home, right? It's like
Yeah.
crazy to think. It's crazy. I don't know. Are we all romantics because we descend from Scots, or is everybody a romantic, or I don't know, but John McClellan's tunes are very like, they seem very romantic to me.
That is an interesting point, isn't it? When anytime, and I'm not saying that it's bad that he would be like motivated by missing home and stuff like that. Like that's totally understandable. It makes a lot of sense. But it's interesting anytime you can look back far enough in the past that you're looking at a time for which people are maybe sometimes over poetically nostalgic for today and see that even people then were looking back to another time previous to that. You know what I mean? Like
Possibly. Oh
that's
yeah.
it's like you John McLellan, you were living in the olden days, but he's saying like remember the olden days. You know what I mean?
Sort
It
of.
kind of expands my feeling a little bit.
Yeah. Or is it like and I don't actually know, but I mean, is a tune like My Dream Valley or Lock Inside? I mean, I wonder when exactly those were written.
Mhm.
I wonder if he's missing home or thinking about it or whatever, but it's pretty wild, right? It's wild that like such amazing music could sort of emerge from, you know, these situations. I think it's very, very interesting. And I was kind of wondering if his musical literacy might have been related to just the general sort of mass literacy that was so like culturally part of Scottish society. I
Yeah,
don't
like
know.
learning makes things available as far as like being able to learn
Totally.
more stuff. It's like it's is the word exponential. It's like a snowball effect. If you learn how to do something like read, then that opens up the possibility to learn all kinds of other things and be exposed to lots of other things. And maybe that had a direct effect on him. I
Yeah.
wondered, Andrew, maybe it's just me. Is this just me, Andrew? Sometimes I feel like there's a little bit of a maybe unnecessary sorting out of like bagpipe tunes are different from songs, and that like a key element to that is that there's not words. Like we're playing melodies and there's not words. Maybe that's a messed up idea that I have in my head. I think that it's a little silly anyway, but I didn't used to think so. What I'm getting at is John McLellan of Dunoon wrote lyrics for a lot of his
Yeah.
tunes, and I wonder if that has to do with the sort of like lyrical quality of these really nice melodies. Even if I don't know what the words are, maybe they informed the melody and there's something about that that comes through, you know?
100%. And I'm actually pretty sure that must be the case. Like for example, a lot of the tunes that he wrote definitely have words. Dream Valley definitely has words that he wrote. I think he wrote, or did he adapt? Not quite sure. But a little cursory research here. He was not only a great piper, but could also play piano, fiddle, penny whistle, and he could read musical notation.
Well, there you go. There's a case for going ahead and learning other instruments, huh?
Yeah, but I mean, I'm just sort of thinking of the writing of bagpipe music into that would still have been like, it would probably have matured a bit, 50 years on or so. But like that was still fairly fresh to write bagpipe music in musical notation. But
Mhm.
to have an understanding of that and to sort of play the piano was probably a key thing. To understand
Yeah,
the fiddle, might have been a key thing. His
that
mother,
makes sense. Yeah.
his mother was a good musician, apparently.
So there's something to be said for exposure as well. It's interesting to me that I didn't know that he played other stuff, but it makes it sound like, so here's the thing. I've seen the tune books, like the collections of his tunes, right? Like he wrote a lot of tunes. And so like, I think I would have ignorantly, obviously, assumed that that was like his thing. Like that's like all John McLellan did was play and write bagpipe music, because I would think that you'd need to spend a lot of time on it in order to produce that much material and have so much of it be quite good, quite popular for a very long time.
Yeah.
And maybe he's like just like a singular anomaly of a very talented person, like that's probably an element here too. But it just makes me think like, oh yeah, like he lived a whole lifetime, like over the course of an entire lifetime, he could have done a lot of things. And we pick out all the bagpipe tunes and squish them together into a book. And that makes it seem like, wow, look at this big body of work. But
Mhm.
the man lived, like he had other things going on in his life.
Yeah.
And I wonder if the varied focus, maybe even informed his music and made it all the better. Maybe I kind of hope so, Andrew. I don't know. I think I've mentioned before that like I've been told when I was younger, I was told a couple times by a few adults that I should stop trying different stuff and focus. And if I didn't focus, I would never get good at anything. And fair enough, I'm not good at anything. But at the same time, like I'm glad I've tried different things, And so like I guess maybe I'm hopeful as I look for examples of other people who try different things, that like there's a model to be followed there, that like it's not a bad way to live. You know what I mean?
Hmm. Yeah, it could be. I mean, and it's all just like, wild speculation and conjecture, right?
Yeah,
But
totally.
for me, I think that John McLellan resonates for me because, like, I think that there is like a lineage of believing that the bagpipe is more than just sort of like a artifact or a relic or archaeological pursuit, right? And it's like here's a guy who's like knew how to play piano, knew how to play the bagpipes, and like started mixing and matching and doing interesting forward thinking things. Like here's a question
Mhm.
I have. Here's a real question, something to think about. Like when Lock and Side first came out, did anybody notice that it was a particularly great tune?
Mhm.
You
Were
know?
there people maybe poo-pooing it because it didn't fit into the mold of the day?
Yeah. Was it an instant classic? Or was it just another collection of notes? Or like what was it?
Yeah.
Or was it just a good name for a tune and that's why people liked it? They didn't recognize that how great the notes were.
Yeah.
Like, would you even recognize it? That's another question. Yeah, and then here's another question. So you sort of had like, Scottish Reformation, like the music that they played in church was all like, it was often like the Psalms and stuff, like were set to music that people related to, right?
Yeah, melodies they would know otherwise. Yeah.
Right. As opposed to like, and man, I'm the wrong person to be talking about this, but like the Catholic Psalms are kind of like, they seem kind of random musically. But
Mhm.
I think one of the things that went on was like, there was a reworking of how that all worked and the stuff you would sing in church as well. I think, I don't know. I
Mhm.
don't know anything, but like, is this maybe a byproduct of that? And like, and maybe people would recognize that the tunes were good because like
Mhm.
people would sing a lot of music on a regular basis.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
suppose maybe they
yeah.
would anyway. I
Yeah,
don't
it
know.
does seem like a thing that people do anyway. And it is fun to see where like sometimes it's not at all uncommon for like the melodies behind worship music, sacred music, church music, you'll find them in folk music collections as well. And you realize like, oh, this is the melody that they were singing at the pub the day before, and they're just putting different words to it at the chapel on Sunday.
Hmm.
Because why wouldn't you if everybody already knows that melody? Even in a literate society, music literacy is another thing. And so, in fact, I have a replica of an old hymn book right there. I mean, this is just one example of an old hymn book, but I do think it's really fun and interesting that it's a hymn book, but it's all lyrics. There's no notation in here at all. But what there is there are little notes at the beginning of the different songs that give options for tunes by name.
Nice.
So if you know these tune names, then you go, okay, we're going to do, lyrics number such and we'll do it to this tune. And the whole congregation goes, oh, yep, I know that one. let's go for it. To the tune of Mary
Wow.
Had a Little Lamb, something like that.
Yeah. That's wild. You could
And so
see
that,
the utility of it. You could see the
oh, for sure.
utility
Yeah.
of it as well for getting people to enjoy the process of thinking about the text.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
I think one of the things that's really caught a lot of people's interest is, damn, we're still playing these tunes and really enjoying them. Maybe not
Mhm.
150 years later. I don't think he wrote these tunes on the day of his birth, but yeah, it's pretty wild, man. It's pretty
But we
wild.
should let those legends build up, as they often do around important people, that he wrote his first
100.
tune
Yeah.
the day he was born.
Well, um, what is it? The Highland Bridge at Fontaine or something like that. Like, is that? I think that's like a Boer War thing. I think he may have even fought. Did he fight in that battle, or I'm not quite sure.
There
It
are
was
so many pipe tune names, dude. I'm embarrassed to tell you how long it took me to realize what the Somme even was like as far as the Battle of the Somme
right.
goes. Field of
Yeah,
Flanders, all those tunes. Like I have no military history in me at all. I'm just taking
yeah,
these tunes as like cool tune. That's the name. All right, So
yeah.
I don't.
It's all kind of steeped in that, which is
Mm,
interesting.
mm.
Yeah, Lock Inside, Reed Maxwell's favorite tune. I know that much. How cool is it to have composed Reed Maxwell's favorite tune?
Yeah, that is pretty cool. What a way to have a legacy that like some of the most impressive and famous pipers of the future
Yeah.
will still be playing your tunes. That's pretty cool.
Then you got tunes like South Hall. He wrote South Hall and The Cowl Gathering. Like these are some of our most prestigious solo competition tunes. He wrote Road to the Isles. He'd play mass bands all the time. Lock Inside, Fontaine, and there's more. I'm not thinking of them off the top of my head, but yeah, there's plenty more.
Well, there's books worth more, right? There's more than one collection of his tunes. I'm sure there's some repeats from
Yeah,
one book to the next, but like there's a lot of tunes. Yeah.
yeah. He's kind of right in there with like GS. And then I suppose Donald McLeod was so prolific that the sheer quantity of tunes really eclipses the others. But
Mm.
yeah, you've got to have John McLellan in your top five. You can also sort of reflect a little bit on how much piping has changed since the tunes were written, right?
Mhm.
And the fact that the tunes still remain as part of the canon despite all the changes, pretty exciting as well. Like we're playing some John McLellan tunes this year. We're doing all sorts of wild and crazy harmony bits and reimaginings and so on.
Do you
And
think, Andrew, that is partly because a writer like John McLellan has molded the current landscape of piping? Like his tunes specifically have had a large influence on where piping has gone? Or was he just very forward thinking? I guess option 3 would be it's pure chance, and option 4 would be it's a combination of everything. But like,
yeah, I don't think it's pure chance. I think his tunes were really forward thinking. That's like my whole fascination with it. It's like, how is it possible that like a fairly like normal kind of dude from Dunoon is writing tunes that are so good? Like, how is that even possible?
yeah. Do you think he like directs where we go in a way? Like, I think I might have mentioned in a conversation we had a little while ago going to a James Taylor concert, and they played some James Taylor over the years, and it like blended into his live performance. And it was just fascinating to
Yeah,
see that when he was younger, he sounded like Bob Dylan.
yeah,
And it's like, oh, maybe kind of all artists sounded like Bob Dylan for a while because of what a big deal Bob Dylan was. And maybe they still do, but I just don't notice it because I'm soaked in the world that Bob Dylan built in a way. And so
yeah.
has Gordon Duncan done the same thing? Are we still soaking in the early years of Gordon Duncan's influence on our world
Oh,
in a way
100%.
that, yeah. And so like, did John McLellan, are we still soaking in John McClellan's world in a way, further away, so it's dissipating maybe, but like, are we still experiencing the ripples from his music? And is that why his music is still relevant? That we are living in a world that is at least partially molded by those tunes specifically.
Yeah, it's wild to think about. So I just asked ChatGPT timeline of famous bagpipe composers. So you have like you have some McCrimmons that go back a really long way.
So they
Then you have
say.
then you have Donald MacDonald, 1750. Then Angus Mackay, 1813. So Angus Mackay, definitely hugely influential composer.
Mhm.
of light music, and he also did a lot with P-Rock as well. But then you have G.S. McLellan was born in 1883, but then John McLellan born in 1875. So that's within the same decade that they were born. And presumably maybe they were composing in the same era. And then Willie Ross, same timeline as John
Wee Willie
McLellan,
Ross.
G.S. Yeah, which is interesting. But then Donald McLeod would be an entire generation or two later than them. Interesting. And then Gordon Duncan 2 generations after that. And then Peter McLeod Sr., same time frame as John McLellan of Dunoon. So like,
that's a hot time for piping.
Yeah. So then why do these major composers emerge at this time, like 1875 to 1885-ish? Does it have to do with the growing prominence of piping in the military? Probably.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I'm not super clear on timeline for when the Highland societies were popular in London, but I'd imagine that like I think that that's part of where like competition came from. Both those influences, like military piping and the popularity of Highland societies, kind of are part of the milieu, at least, that gives us competitive piping. Maybe.
Okay. Well, here's what our ChatGPT, our French AI. Here's what ChatGPT said.
What was the great joke about that? That GPT, is it like I farted in French? I think that's right. I think that's what it is. Something like that, I think, yeah.
Okay, so we have an emergence of major bagpipe composers like John McLellan, G.S., Peter McLeod Sr., and a few others. But okay, here's what it thinks. Number 1, legacy of Scottish Enlightenment. So by the late 1800s, Scotland had universal literacy, public education systems, natural culture that valued reading, music, and artistic expression. Amazing, by the way.
Makes sense.
That's so,
yeah.
And that's so cool, by the way. So cool. Next thing, rise of the military pipe band system, it says. 19th century saw the formalization of military regiments with full pipe bands, establishment of pipe major as a trained leadership role. They had exams, training schools, and even competitions for pipers within the military. I wonder how much it's winging that information, but that's kind of cool. The professionalization of piping demanded a lot of new music, right?
Sure.
Like that's
that
got to
makes
be
sense.
part of it, right?
Yeah.
It's like, I seem to remember reading maybe in some of the William Donaldson books, it's like, yeah, like part of the job was cranking out tunes to be played. And then we had industrialization and urbanization. So big cities were booming. There was more leisure time, access to publishing and public performance, and cross pollination as well. So that makes a lot of sense. So a lot of things were happening in the big cities and towns. Talented pipers like McLellan and the McLeods grew up hearing more than just Kailmore. They heard all sorts of music. Makes sense. And then here's another thing that makes sense. At the time, explosion of printed tune books. So like things were being printed, gangbusters. Walter Scott and all that was all correlated with the boom of printing, right? And sort of like consumer acquisition of books and stuff, maybe.
Yeah, you had a population of people who could read. Of course, they're going to want to read, and so you got to get books out to them quick. In a similar way, if you get a bigger population of people who can play pipes, you got to get them something to play. That makes sense.
And by 1875, so that would have been the year John McLellan was born, printed piping collections would have been widely available at that time. Maybe for the first time. Maybe?
So he would have had like a rich environment to come into to learn and get into it himself in the first place. And that maybe lends itself to then innovating and creating based off of that rich environment.
Okay. And then that gave me another idea, which are John McLellan's tunes still so famous and so influential? And not only his, right? There's also Willie Ross, and then there's Peter McLeod Sr. and GS, of course. But like maybe it's because they were first to market.
Yeah,
So they're the
could
first.
Be a timing thing.
Yeah, you've heard the annoying trope that bagpipe only has 9 notes. So these boys were the first. They had the untapped gold mines, and so
they wrote all the songs that can be written.
Right, they wrote all the good stuff. But also, I guess my point is like, nobody really cares about Google's AI, do they? Because ChatGPT was first. And yeah, Google has one, Facebook has one, and so on. But it's like, maybe it's just the fact that these were maybe our first generation of really exceptional tunes
Yeah.
but it's not true, right? Like, so you got your McCrimmons and your P-Rock and stuff, but was this the first generation where there was a broad enough Venn diagram with the other types of music that interested people, that people loved, right? So like we were talking about how John McLellan wrote with like real chord progressions in mind, I think, right?
Yeah.
And it helps these tunes really hit and like sort of hits the soul in a new way, in a poignant
Yeah.
way. And maybe they were the first generation of people to really start to do that.
I
That's
mean,
an interesting hypothesis.
would it have been
I
kind
like
of
that
like pop
hypothesis.
music at the time? Like if all the other bagpiping music was like kind of stuffy and a little bit out of reach, a little bit esoteric, a little bit hard for the masses to get into. Was this a guy being
Yeah.
like, hey, I can do today's top 40 or something like them on the bagpipes, and the masses go, wow, I love that. And the other pipers go, I want to do that too.
Yeah, I think so. Like maybe that was the bagpiping enlightenment. Like
Mm,
maybe that
mm.
was the moment that it started to catch fire. Like, oh, the bagpipe is a real thing. Not to say that the old music wasn't real. Like, I don't want to be misconstrued because the Pibroch is really awesome. And maybe that's the role that Pibroch played in earlier centuries as well.
Mm.
Right. I'm always just curious why those tunes resonate so well with me and obviously with others
Yeah.
as well.
I'd imagine things come and go in phases too. Like there may well have been other balloons of popularity for piping previous to that, but maybe we just don't know about them because of record keeping. Because I don't know, cities weren't as big yet, and so the balloons of popularity were happening in smaller villages, and there weren't a lot of people writing it down or something like that. Maybe that's all
Right.
it is, and so maybe this is actually totally par for the course, but we have record of it. It's the first time we have like clear record of it happening.
Let me ask ChatGPT something along the lines of, so is 1875 the bagpipe music enlightenment
But it's
kind
going to
of?
say, that is a brilliant insight.
I know it's going to say something like, "Oh my God, you are
What an
so
interesting
awesome.
question.
You are the best." And that's why, it keeps me coming back. Oh man, wait till you hear this, Jim. So here's what I wrote to it. So is 1875 the bagpipe musical enlightenment due to the literacy brought about by the Scottish Enlightenment, which was brought about by the Reformation? That's what I wrote. Guess what it said? Yes. That's an incredibly accurate and powerful way to put it.
Powerful, even. Wow.
So, one, the Reformation, led by John Knox, it made literacy a religious necessity. Emphasis led to parish schools and democratized authority. Yikes. We don't want to get in too far into this. Is not that kind of podcast. Okay. And then Scottish Enlightenment blossomed from widespread literacy and moral seriousness.
Moral
I feel like
seriousness.
I feel like that is an interesting insight, right? And it valued education, reason, self-improvement, and civic duty. We like that, Jim. Adam Smith, David Hume, etc. Music, printing, publishing flourished under these values. Near universal literacy by the mid-1800s, military and civic pipe bands exploded in popularity. Bagpipe music was collected, standardized, published. And then there's sort of like a musical renaissance right around that time that John McLellan was born. I mean, I don't know. I'm sure it's an extremely amateurish overview, but it's interesting to think about.
Right person, right place, right time. All comes together, huh?
Yeah. And by the way, ChatGPT, you guys, you'll all be glad to know it agrees. 1875 is the musical enlightenment for bagpipes. But
and Andrew Douglas is the most insightful bagpipe podcast host in the world.
Yeah. Mirror, mirror.
You're right. Yeah.
Who's like the best bagpiper of them all? So here's a question. Viewers, if you're still by some strange reason still listening, is 1875, because ChatGPT thinks so, you guys, is it the moment that bagpiping becomes a literate art form? Obviously, it's not the moment because Angus Mackay, and that was a generation or two earlier. Angus Mackay was the one that was famous for starting to write this thing down in a way that's very similar to the way we do now. But is this the moment where it takes off?
Yeah, it comes solid within the community.
And the reason and the sort of evidence we have for that would be that so many bagpipers from this specific period of time created the canon of tunes that we now play. It says this is the moment where composers emerge from humble backgrounds because they have literacy, they're in the military, and because print is making it more and more possible. By the way, that resonates with what you see today, right? It's like you have people participating in this just because you have so much accents or access is what I meant. Tunes are no
Both.
longer an oral tradition. Now they can be written, refined, remembered, riffed on, right? At this
Yeah.
period of time. And then this says the bagpipe at this time breaks out of ritual and battlefield function a little bit and enters the realm of personal, expressive, and even experimental music. Fascinating. Fascinating to think about. I'm not sure if that's correct, but there you go. I wonder if it would be worth thinking about like how it's progressed since then and how that looks. So there's lots of little factors in there. Kind of cool.
That is very cool. And I don't mean it at all to take away from how impressive John McLellan himself is for the tunes that he wrote. That's all really cool. But I do think it's an interesting exercise to what we've done. What I'm saying is it's been interesting to me to go through this conversation and have that expanding experience where it makes you go, oh, like these things don't happen in a vacuum. There are factors that are coming into play. And the more you explore those factors, the more you realize, like, I can't put a finger on an explanation for why this happened. There are too many factors coming together that stretch too far in space and time. And wow, isn't life a wonderful, fascinating mess?
It's crazy and it's evolutionary, right? Like when you unleash the creativity and people are trying things, and when you're able to actually communicate those things to other people, not only are you experimenting with these ideas, but you're able to print them and get them out there in various ways. And now other people are getting it and being like, man, that's so cool. And then you're trying your own version of it, and some of it might be successful and some of it might be a failure. Man, maybe that's why we all care about winning the world so much. It's like, maybe that's the way to get your ideas heard and thought about.
So that you kind of take a participatory role in this ongoing development.
Like, who remembers second place medleys?
And there's a song about that. Was it Nelly who did I Am Number One? Is it 2 is not the winner and 3 no one remembers? I think it's something like that.
Yeah. I mean, there might be a couple of exceptions that prove the rule, but maybe that's why we all want to win it so bad. It's because you want to be remembered and thought about, and you want your ideas to be taken and riffed on, or I don't know. It's interesting to think about. Another thing to ask is, did John McLellan, was he particularly concerned with whether other people played his tunes, or was he just doing it as a little outlet in his otherwise perhaps slightly stressful, career situation?
That's a fun thing to think about. What if he had aspirations to be like a world famous clarinetist or fiddler or something like that, and this bagpiping thing was just like this throwaway little hobby on the side? And if he could see us now, he'd be like, "But I wrote a piece for violins, and it's lost to time, and it's the most."
Yeah, it's wild.
You like that bagpipe tune? I wrote that as a joke. It's about my dog, something like that.
Yeah, I don't think that was the case. I think
wouldn't that be funny though?
I think that I think his tunes have those nostalgic titles, and I do get the impression that it was a deeply kind of like passionate thing.
Yeah.
Like when I write a tune, it's just because like I try and get something to sound cool. But I think for these guys, there's a lot more depth.
Yeah.
And life was probably a lot more like difficult in many, many respects. So anyway, Jim, this has been fun. And I just want to take my hat off. Chapeau, as they might say, to the old John McLellan, 150 years old, like pretty close to the day this episode might come out. I think August 8th was his birthday in 1875, something like that.
August 8th. Easy to remember if it's 8/8. Nice.
So let's leave it there.
Deal.
HBD JMD.
Yes.
Hey everybody, Andrew Douglas here from the Piper's Dojo, and I just want to say thanks so much for listening to today's iteration of the podcast. If you enjoyed what you heard here today, it would be super helpful to us and to a lot of bagpipers out there trying to find us. If you could give us a top-notch review on whatever platform you're using to listen to this podcast, particularly Apple, iTunes, and Spotify and things like that, your review would be really, really helpful. So if you have a moment today, definitely go over there and help us out. Other than that, until we meet again on the podcast or somewhere else, thanks again for listening.